This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going to go back to racing camels. Now with this we're going to be stacking the camels, we're going to be racing them, we're going to be adding some new modules, like we're going to be taking pictures of the camels that are coming stacked running around. We're looking at Camel Up Super Cup, which is an expansion for the Spiel Des Jahres winner, Camel Up. Now this adds 2 extra players, 4 different ways to play with modules. Let me show you how it's played, I'll see you on the other side. The expansion comes with a bunch of components, a new board, a camera, a podium with some new dice, some new Oasis tiles for new players, some betting tiles, some betting cards, another pyramid. Let's get into the 4 modules. Well, the easiest thing here is we have 2 new players. So you get a full set of cards for each of the 5 camels that you'll use to bid for first or last place, just like normal. And each of these people will get their own little Oasis tile. So now you can play with up to 10 people. And one of the things you can add is this module for the camera. It comes with its own board. And essentially this camera is really cool. It actually has different lenses that you can use. You can see this one in here. These flip over backwards and there's actually 2 different pictures on each of these lenses, so they don't really do anything special. They just make the thing look cooler. And you have this camera. For an action, instead of doing one of the normal actions, you can take the camera tile like this and take the camera and place it in any empty spot. Now let's say, essentially, this is a double camel stack, and let's say this camel stack moves right in front of the camera and lands and ends its movement there. Anytime any camel lands its movement there, a player with the photography token will get 1 coin for however many camels are there. So in this case, I'd get 2 coins. If it was this, I would get 1 coin. No matter what, however many I've scored, once I've scored the money, this and the camera go back to the board where somebody else can take it for an action. If the camera did not make any money by the end of the leg, meaning all the camels have moved once and all the dice are out, the camera also goes back. It's a one-time use, but then you can get it again if you still want that round. Now you'll also notice that camera board that we were just looking at can actually flip over and make the track longer, so now it comes up and goes all the way around here as opposed to just staying out and going around the other way. But if it is flipped over, you'll also notice that there is a podium here that we can place with other dice, and this adds another module where at the beginning of each leg, whoever's in last place, like in this case if this was the beginning of a new leg, White's in last because he's on bottom, we would put a white die in there in addition to all the other dice. Now these dice are special, they have gray numbers and they're only 1s and 2s, and so White is going to move more than everybody else this round, and that's one way to use these dice. Another way to use these dice is you actually get an extra pyramid. These are the tiles that are placed up there that you use to roll the dice. At any time, even after you've used this, let's say I get this out, I take it like normal, I'll shake it, I'll put a die out, and we'll move White here. 1, 2. Now, at the end of my turn, if I have this, even if it's the same turn I got it, I can return it back to the pile and take any one of these dice. And by the way, when one of these dice gets, special dice come out, they come here and they cannot be used again this round. But I can take any die other than the person who's in last place. So anybody else other than yellow, I could take a die, maybe I take the orange die, and I put it in there. So I can add another die of any other camel if I give up one of my pyramids. So I'm giving up a point to have a little bit more control. But again, once that die comes out, it can't be used again this leg. That is an additional variant of these dice as opposed to just using the last die. I notice this long board also has some extra bet tokens, but you can also play with those as well if you don't use the extra long race because you'd put this off to the side. Now let's talk about what these do. Now the normal betting tokens, as you know, always are you get however many you want for first place, second place gets $1, and anything else loses $1. Let's say you made this bet earlier in the round, but towards the end of the round you realize that yellow's pretty much going to finish in 4th. There's a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. You can, for your action, you can take one of these tiles and cover this up, which basically means I'm going to go for 4th, and he's going to get me 3 points if he gets there. Otherwise, I'm going to lose $1. And you could do that on any bet you've already made. Or if you haven't made a bet on a specific tile yet, you can pull the last one on the bottom. And the bottoms are pretty much always 2s, unless someone's done it earlier and there's still one there. Maybe there's a 3. But let's say I go White. I pull White from the bottom of the normal piles, and then I take it and I put one of these on it that's available. Of course, there's only one of each because once all these are gone, you can't do this anymore. And this is sort of changing your bet or taking a new bet with some more surety with it. The final module is betting partnerships, and the rules say only use this with 6 or more players, and I would agree. Because what happens is, let's say we have this bet here, and this player really knows he's not going to win this one, but this guy made a good bet, and it's still looking good. These players have these cards in front of them. This player can basically give this player his card. They swap cards, and they flip them over as if they're handshaked. So now you know who is in handshake with who. So now this player, who's really this guy, if this player scores, or when this player scores at the end, essentially out of all the bets he has, the player who is in shake hands with him can take the same amount, or basically win the same card as this player. Essentially allows you to win any one card that somebody else won if you did that. And you really need that with larger games, because a lot of the good betting tiles go away, and it allows you to kind of piggyback on somebody else's bet. Well, first let me give you the background on Camel Up. When I first played the game, if you've watched my review for it, the first time I played it, I hated the game. And then every time I played it after that, I liked it more and more and more. And it's still to the point where every time I pull this game out, I really enjoy it, maybe even more than I remember enjoying it. Because I've just learned to love the game for what it is in its base game, which is sort of a random game that has some randomness, but still has some strategy within that randomness that you can harness for some enjoyment. Now, if you had brought this expansion along, the instant after I played the first time and I hated it, I felt like I didn't have enough control, I wanted more things to do, more things to think about, this expansion would have been the exact thing that I would have wanted to for this. So you're probably in two different camps. Maybe you've played Camel Up and you thought, nah, I didn't really like it, there wasn't enough there, it was too random, or maybe you just like it the way it is. So between those two things, how do these modules fit in? There's 4 different modules. I can tell you first, the camera module I really like. It doesn't add a huge amount to the game, but it does give you another action to do. So you can put that camera down, you can get a few points, a few dollars, and then give it back and do this and that. When you're stuck and you don't necessarily have any good betting tiles to take, but you don't really want to risk rolling the die again just for getting one, maybe you can take a little thing. It's kind of on the verge of those Oasis tile things where you can make a few bucks here and there. It's something that I'll probably always add to the base game no matter what. It's one of the pieces of this expansion that I do like and that I will probably never play without. Now, on to the other modules. I had a lot of problems with some of the modules in the game. Specifically, it says if you play with 9 or 10 players, play with all 4 modules. Do not ever play with all 4 modules and the expanded rule set in those modules, ever. I did this. And it wasn't even with 9 or 10 players, it was with 6 players, and it turned a 30-minute Camel Up game into an hour and 45 minutes, and we were not going slow, we weren't chit-chatting, we were playing. There's just so much going on there, and just this is what happens is, when you add the extra dice, it sounds like it's a good idea. Hey, let's just add 1 die for the last player. Okay, that's not bad. I can see that. You add 1 extra die, or it has someone creep up. The problem I have with that is I felt the decision to be made in the base game with who's coming in first, who's coming in last is huge. If you bet on if you're the first person to bet right on who's coming in first and last, you're getting $8. That's a big bet. And I've seen things where camels have fallen back, but then have come back and not only even won, even in the base game without this extra die. And so I really like the aspect of when a camel starts to fall back in the base game, you really got to press your luck as to, am I going to bet on this guy coming in last, or is there a better action to do? With this extra die, it's a catch-up mechanic for that last person, so betting last doesn't really make a whole lot of sense until the very end of the race, and I don't like that. I think it takes away from it. That's the dice. I really dislike the extra ability of anytime on your turn, you can put a pyramid card back and you can add any die except the player who's last into the pyramid. Because what happens is, and if you combine that with those extra betting tiles that you can change your bet, it's nuts, because every single leg takes forever. Every leg, people are thinking they're grabbing bets, and then, oh, well, that's not going to work. I'll turn a pyramid card in, I'll put another die. Now it screws everyone's bets up because everyone's still changing. Oh, well, that's okay. Next time it comes around, I'll just change my bet. So what happens is everyone goes like normal, people take bets, and then people change dice, and then people change bets, and it is boring. It does give you a lot more to think about. There is a lot more moving parts, but it's even more random and more chaotic than the base game, because everything is always changing, and you're just changing upon changing layers upon layers. Did not like it. So I would never play with those ever again. Even just alone, without the dice, playing with those ones that change the bet, Again, I think it takes away from what the base game did so well, which was A, it was streamlined, and B, it really made you feel like, if I make this bet, I'm gonna live with this thing, I better be sure. And now you can just like renege on your bet and just, you know, hey, I don't want this, I'll just do something else. I didn't like that. I think it took the tension out of the game of really going for a bet and deciding what to do. The 9 or 10 players, I would play with 9 or 10, but I'm not playing with all 4 modules, that's for sure. The extra, the handshake cards, the investment partnership cards, I actually liked this. And even with 6 players, I think it works well. It says don't play it with less than 6. I think what that does to this game is that before, the game was not very good with 7 or 8 at all. I think 6 is the most you would ever want to play this with without the expansion. The last 2 players, it's just you don't get good enough bets. If you roll the dice, by the time it gets back to you, all the good bets are gone. With this, you can roll the dice with 7 or 8 players, and now when it comes back to you, you can use this to get on a bet with somebody else. And so, yes, I like those for 6 or more players. I like that. I like the photo op booth. Everything else, I will not play with. So this was sort of a 50-50 for me. If you're one of those players that wanted more thinkiness, wanted more going on from the base Camel Up, this might make the game be what you wanted it to be, which is what I originally thought I would want. But if you really love the game and you like the way it is now in the base game, I think adding some of these other things will help. Play with higher player counts and add maybe a little easy decision, but don't add it all in because you'll go crazy. It'll be way too long for what it is, and that's Camel Up Super Cup.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.